Hello, hello, and welcome to That Second Gen Life with Samhar. I'm your host, Samhar Raya. If you are a second generationer, child of immigrants, a diaspora leader, professional change maker, however you identify, this space is for you. This podcast is more than just storytelling. It's about strategy, identity, leadership, communities, finding yourself in this beautiful diasporic journey we're all going through. We'll talk about everything from navigating the workforce as a diaspora professional to the role that you can play in making an impact from where you are, locally or around the world. We'll talk about the realities and joys of being a second generationer, some of the challenges, some of the delights, but most importantly, we're going to remind you that you are powerful, that you belong, and that your job here is to create the spaces you wish existed. Welcome to That Second Gen Life with Samhar. I'm your host, Samhar Raya, and you are listening to episode 6. I can't believe we're on episode 6, and I'm so excited and grateful because this is only the beginning. Today's topic, almost a topic I didn't want to do because I thought, we don't need to cover that. But as I really looked at the conversations we're about to have in this podcast, I realized, you know what? I need to pump the brakes and slow down a little bit, and I need to help everyone see this big picture a little more clearly. Because I've been pretty excited in these podcasts and I have covered a lot in 20 minutes. I get that. I recognize that. So for me, I'm so excited because now I can slow down. I can unpack. I can walk you through these things that you will find are so extremely relevant to your life and helpful for you. Whether you're a second gen, a first gen, a multi-gen, or you just are so interested in this topic of diasporas. Let's think about this, okay? So today I'm going to answer one of the most common questions I get, one of the questions that everyone asks me as soon as they say, oh, you work on diasporas. Okay, so what do diasporas do? How do they make impact? What does it mean when you say diaspora impact? And I understand. I think that phrase diaspora impact is almost problematic because it's so general. You've got diasporas, which is already general, and then you say impact. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I will tell you right now, diaspora impact is the most phenomenally positive and transformative example of people using their time, talent, and treasure for good. And the reason I say that is because when you look at what diaspora impact actually consists of, it is like an accordion that you just expand and it just goes really long and really big. That's what I feel about diaspora impact. There's so many examples. Where do we start? I got you. So the way we're going to do today's conversation is I want to answer this question in the simplest way possible. And I want you to get an inkling of what diaspora impact looks like today. And then we will be unpacking that in the next few episodes. Okay? So there is a lot of talk about diaspora impact, diaspora influence, diaspora power, all of these like really uplifting phrases that make you feel like there's this huge secret behind a curtain. And I'll tell you something, it's not a secret. It's actually right out in front of us every day. The only challenge is that we're doing a bad job, to be honest, of capturing that impact, collecting the data, and reporting on it. And so what I've had to do is just search through all the different examples and experiences and lessons I've had from different diaspora communities and try to whittle it into a framework that is digestible and that can get you started. Now, we know that diasporas have always been forces for change and positive change. We know that diasporas are carriers of memory, of inspiration, of resilience, and activation. We shape the cultures and countries that we live in. We strengthen and build economies. And we mobilize and advocate for our communities. We do this because we are affected in our day-to-day lives, but we also know that we have an obligation and a desire to support our people back home and around the world. So in the spirit of honoring your ancestors or honoring your brothers and sisters, in the spirit of solidarity across different diaspora communities, we create these spaces to be seen, to be made visible, and to give back. And I'm not suggesting that diaspora impact is for credit or for ego or recognition, but I'm suggesting that the things that drive us to do what we do are in the spirit of service, in the spirit of solidarity, and in the spirit of respect for the journey of our ancestors. Like what they went through for me to be here requires that I give back. It requires that I create something. My people need it. My parents struggled, my ancestors struggled. That's the kind of thing that's so powerful about diaspora impact. Rarely is it a purely self-serving motivation. I want to make money. I want to be on the cover of this magazine. Or I want to be known as so-and-so. Rarely is that the motivator for diasporas. Diaspora impact in so many ways is a giving back. And that giving back is multiplied across different sectors and industries. Okay. So here we go. Think of this impact in three major ways, maybe three pillars, let's say. All right. And these three pillars are really capturing our day-to-day existence and the world at the same time. So I like to think of diaspora impact in these three ways. Diasporas essentially organize and activate around driving social, economic, and civic impact. And oftentimes they're driving this impact to shape policy outcomes. They're not only trying to build something for themselves and their communities, but they want to better their own locale that they live in, and they want to improve the environment of the people in their homeland or the needs of their homeland. Now, social impact, it's kind of straightforward because it's all things social, but essentially it's an example of how diasporas are shaping culture and community, how they're preserving heritage and memory, and how they're providing social services to those in need. So social impact can run the gamut. It can be from a nonprofit museum to an organization delivering food to the elderly. It can be anything from education to health to dance, culture, food, festivals, whatever it is that is essentially socially impactful. Then there's economic impact, which is an example where diaspora individuals, businesses, and organizations shape and strengthen economies. That looks like a small business, an entrepreneur, an investor. But it also looks like the diaspora philanthropist, the person who responds to humanitarian disasters, the organization which mobilizes resources in times of emergencies, crises, conflict. If a local restaurant burned down by a tragic fire, the diaspora community will organize. And that philanthropic effort is part of our economic impact because it's restoring not only the business, but it's putting money back into the local economy. Of course, the other example is where there's crisis that occurs in our ancestral homeland. Diasporas send money in an instant, but they also send other forms of support. They send in-kind donations. They travel to provide training or to help reopen the city or the affected people's day-to-day lives. They travel there and they boost the economy. They help the systems recover. And lastly, the third pillar is the civic impact, which I think is more intuitive for most of us, or most of you listening. It's where diasporas essentially organize, mobilize, and advocate for civic impact around their lives and the lives of people around the world. So that's policy advocacy, that's grassroots mobilization, that's voter education, that's civic engagement, that's advocacy around rights-based issues. It's workshops and trainings for immigrant communities that don't know their rights. We're seeing a lot of this right now, especially where immigrant diaspora communities are really struggling to understand their rights in the United States around what they should expect and how they should move. But these three pillars are essentially capturing almost all aspects of society's day-to-day life and our global network, right? It's how we live and breathe, right? Social, economic, and civic. And there might be something that you do that you can't neatly fit into one of these pillars, and that's okay. They're not supposed to neatly fall in. But essentially, that's how we form ourselves and how we drive impact. Now, when you look at these pillars and you drill down into the numbers, the money, the revenue, the coverage, or the policy shifts, it's massive. But because we're so dispersed, we haven't really been capturing it in a collective way. We really haven't been able to look up and see each other and report out. There are some really powerful examples of organizations that have been able to do this in their own lane, so to speak. And I'll share those in the next few episodes. I'm not going to go into all these details today. I've learned my lesson, everybody. But these are the three pillars that I feel are so important. So now that you know these three pillars, the question is, where do you see yourself? Are you someone who loves preserving culture, supporting social causes? Maybe you're working in education or health. That would be social impact, right? Or maybe you are an entrepreneur, a business owner, an investor, and you want to use your financial capital to shape outcomes and get a return on your investment. Maybe you're a humanitarian and you want to mobilize funds and raise money to support an emergency or crisis. You could be all these things. What I've listed so far might speak to you in every single way. But essentially, when we think of how diasporas organize, they generally start in one of these three fields. Lastly, there's no right or wrong place to be. I'm not suggesting you have to pick one, but I want you to look at this roadmap as a starter, that diasporas organize to shape social, economic, and civic policy outcomes. Even if you are a business who wants to make money selling your traditional food or clothing, you're still shaping outcomes on the ground, which shape policy, to be honest, because if you are a diaspora business, you may benefit or may need more services from your government. It's almost mandatory that whatever pillar you're in, you have an understanding and a focus on what policy change could look like in each of these pillars. I want you to sit with these 3 pillars and ask yourself these questions of where you see yourself. And again, if you're not a member of a diaspora, these pillars can still apply to you because it does show you the pathway for how you want to engage and support diaspora efforts. As you look at the world today and the more connected we have become, despite any effort to dismantle that, the truth is that our communities around the world are connected to each other. You can't deny that. And you may find yourself one day wanting to support a particular initiative or issue or region and realize that the diasporas are quite influential in that space. And this is how you start the mapping. You ask yourself, social, economic, or civic impact. Which one do I want to be in? Which one do I want to support? So I will be unpacking each of these in more detail in the next few episodes, so stay tuned. So how does it land? And where do you find yourself? Let me know. I want to hear your thoughts. DM me, comment, tag me, whatever you want to do. I'm everywhere. You can find me on all the socials. But I love hearing your insight. And if you want to take this to the next level, or if you want one-on-one support, we're always here for you. We have the coaching, the consulting, and the courses. I'm so excited to start this conversation with you. And again, this is just the beginning. You're going to start to see a pathway for your own diaspora impact as a first, second, multi-gen, or an ally by this question. So thanks for listening. Thank you for all the support. And thank you for joining me on this week's episode. I can't wait to see you again. I hope you all take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time. All right, everyone. Bye-bye. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow That Second Gen Life with Samhar on your favorite listening platform.